Good evening. Welcome to the parent information for the Centers for Enriched Studies tonight. We hope to give you lots of information to have you understand a little bit about acceleration and enrichment in the core curriculum, as well as how it is different in the Centers for Enriched Studies program. My name is Kitty Williams. I am in the Division of Accelerated and Enriched Instruction. We also have Meredith Casper, who is a principal at one of our center programs at Charles Drew Elementary School that's going to talk with you tonight. We have a grade 4 teacher at Chevy Chase Elementary School, Julie Quintana. And we have Betty Shevitz from the DC CAPS office, Division of Choice and Consortia Application Programs. I know it is DC CAPS, and I don't have the acronym in front of me. And she will be talking with you as well. So what we would like to do, as I said earlier, we don't have a remote to advance the slides, so we're going to have to do it manually. There we go. So as I said earlier, we're going to talk about enriched and accelerated opportunities at the local schools as well as in the Center for Enriched Studies program. We're going to talk a little bit about the instructional approach and the academic environment that students experience in the Centers for Enriched Studies program. We also are going to address some frequently asked questions, as well as provide you with a timeline of the process. If there is time at the end of the presentation, we'll address any questions that may not have already been answered. Okay, we are going to start with local programming. Curriculum 2.0 and any of the newly adopted curriculum is aligned to the Common Core standards that were adopted in 2010 by the state of Maryland. Those are very rigorous standards, and all of the curriculum, regardless of whether it is the newly approved curriculum or Curriculum 2.0, or even the Centers for Enriched Studies, are aligned to those very rigorous standards. All students, no matter what curriculum, have the opportunity to work on creative and critical thinking skills through that curriculum. There are additional opportunities for enrichment. For example, in mathematics, there are weekly opportunities to begin that math enrichment starting in kindergarten. There are also math pathways, particularly beginning at grade 4, where students go into a compacted program, Math 4-5, or Math 5-6 at the elementary level, where all of 4th grade and some of 5th grade is taught in 1 year, and then the other half is taught in 5th, and then part of 6th in the next year. That's an example of some acceleration and some enrichment that can happen for any student, whether they are in local programming or in the Center for Enriched Studies. Okay. So some other areas where students can experience some enrichment and acceleration at the local school is through some of our English language arts programming. Students can read advanced novels, advanced texts, and they can also participate in junior great books. This is a program that helps develop critical and creative thinking skills through questioning, inquiry, shared inquiry discussion in particular. It's a hallmark of that particular program so that students can really go into complex text in depth through discussion, through reading, and through writing. Junior Great Books is used at the local programming as well as in the center program. The Gifted Center at the College of William and Mary develops English language arts or reading language arts units. Those units are used both in the local school as well as the center program. In 4th grade, our students engage in autobiographies and memoirs, where they study authors' texts who have written autobiographies or memoirs. They write their own, and they look at things like cultural influences, heredity, and things like that that have influenced that writing, and look at that style to try and mimic it. In 5th grade, our students in the local programming engage in a program called, or a unit called Literary Reflections, but in the center they use another one called Patterns of Change. And that's where students read about different authors, study their style, very similar to what they do in 4th grade. All of the William and Mary units engage students in persuasive writing, as well as research skills and researching an issue-based topic of choice. In science and social studies, there are opportunities for students to engage in inquiry projects. These are meant to be interdisciplinary. And the center curriculum, when Julie talks a little bit more about what that looks like at the classroom level, you will see how even the reading and writing is integrated into the science and the social studies content. Okay, so we have 9 regional centers and 4 local centers that are across the entire county for grades 4 and 5. These centers are designed for students who do not have a peer group at their local center, and the students present themselves as an outlier where it's very difficult to program for them and their needs cannot easily be met at their local school. And this is a very important point, because if you have a peer group at your school, meaning students who are performing with very like characteristics and performance, you can group those students together and program for them at the local school. Whereas if there's just 1 or 2, that's very, very difficult to do, and that's what we mean by a peer group and an outlier in a school. The goal of the program is to provide very advanced programming for students, reading complex text, looking at topics in depth, looking at topics that are more abstract, and at times even some topics that are on a more mature level. Students are monitored through performance-based types of tasks as well as portfolio techniques, and they are engaging in an environment where they engage in very rich discussion about what they are reading, what they are investigating, and then create different products across all of the core contents. And there's one more. This type of an atmosphere gives level-alike peers an opportunity to be together, to be probed and prompted, to take risks, and to really examine and explore different content to really get at some of their potential. Today I was reading about one of the releases of some of the student awards that have come out from the different high schools, and I just thought to myself, that's what we're trying to do, is nurture that student so that when they're in high school, they feel confident, they feel comfortable, and they are willing to take the risk to develop some of these kinds of thoughts and actions that I read about from the winners at the high school. Oftentimes, these students have very unique profiles, and the center is a way for them to be addressed. And now I'm going to turn it over to Meredith Casper, the principal at Charles Drew Elementary School. Thank you.
So good evening. My name is Meredith Casper, and I am pleased to say that with my 15 years in Montgomery County Public Schools, I have been the principal of Pinecrest, which is a host for the center program, the director of AEI, and now back to being the principal of Drew Elementary School, which also hosts the center program. So I talked to you about experiences from both the principal perspective as well as the central office perspective in terms of what we're offering our students to move forward. In both regional programs and our local center programs. So the curriculum that you are looking at for the Center for Enriched Studies was written by the Office of Accelerated Enriched Instruction about 4 years ago. And it does look at the standards that are set for us for the Common Core for grade 4 and grade 5. But what is different about these standards is that we have blended them with the aspects of gifted research in terms of how gifted students learn best and created a curriculum that is unique to their needs while still teaching them the state standards. We are looking at that curriculum through the lens of reading, writing, science, and social studies, because as Mrs. Williams told you, we still teach MCPS Math 4 or Math 4-5 moving forward, or other courses as deemed appropriate. When you look at the curriculum environment that's set up within your classroom, we are looking at creating an atmosphere that promotes critical thinking, risk-taking, creative expression to help students really realize that their potential and to push them to another level. We're creating for them an environment where we're really asking them to think what's the answer to the why and to ask another why to that why as they continue to move forward. Kitty? So as we look at these centers, we are pleased to say in Montgomery County that we offer them in other locations. So we do have regional programs that pull from targeted distribution areas in terms of Barnsley, Chevy Chase, Clear Spring, Cold Spring, Drew, Fox Chapel, Mill Creek Town, Oakview, and Pinecrest. So from these we pull from the catchment areas of students who are outliers in their local elementary school. As a result of the choice study that we've been implementing over the past 5 years here in Montgomery County, we were able to offer some local centers for students within the local school at Matsunaga, Pawnee Branch, Rachel Carson, and Stonegate Elementary School. So they are they are participating in the same program that we offer at our regional programs, but the cohort size of students was large enough that they required to have the program within their local building. So as we look at the centers in the instructional design, as I stated earlier, we are really still looking at the standards for grade 4 and the standards for grade 5, but then embedding the information about gifted research. So we look at, in difference to how Curriculum 2.0 was written, the content, the process, and the product about how we're going about addressing those same standards. And we're looking at ways to extend and enrich and enhance their understanding of the information that's being shared at grade 4 or grade 5, so that we're really pushing them to think about things differently and to apply their learning in new ways. In terms of looking at the curriculum, what's different from Curriculum 2.0 is it's a more of an interdisciplinary connection. So we might be reading about something in social studies, connecting it in reading, and then writing about it in the writing process. So there's a more of a tightly webbed curriculum between the different content areas to how we look at moving things forward. So as I told you, we wrote this curriculum in 2014, and we looked at the best inference from the National Gifted Association in terms of gifted research and above grade level experiences. It was meant to springboard further than Curriculum 2.0, but also use some of the resources that are currently in Curriculum 2.0. So we use junior grade books and we use William and Mary, but we use more of them or a higher level of them in order to be able to reach the standards of 4th and 5th grade. We also have supplemented with resources that go beyond the school setting in terms of educational experiences, in terms of video chats, being able to have guest speakers come in, being able to do online research, and connecting with other people at a deeper level to allow us to satisfy their need to address the questions of why. In terms of looking at the development and application of them, like we said before, we're really looking at that content, process, and product. I'm not asking them to read a book and write a book report. I'm asking them to read a book and compare 3 other books by the same author to be able to understand author style and craft. asking them to be able to look at social studies and look at point of view of what's happening in history and draw correlations to what's happening here. So we are not teaching the things that are happening in 4th and 5th grade, but how we're teaching them and how we're pushing them is really at their level, where traditionally some of our students would say they were bored in class because they already know it or they've whizzed through it too quickly. So as we look at the resources within the curriculum, some, as I already told you, do parallel what's in Curriculum 2.0. So there is junior grade books and there is William and Mary. In contrast, we also offer 6+1 traits of writing as a core-based writing curriculum to help them identify them, as well as other gifted resources and advanced novels that are functioning more on their readability level than focusing on their grade level. So our 4th grade students are typically seen maybe reading some 5th grade material and 6th grade material, and my 5th grade students are reading some 6th grade material and some 7th grade material while still addressing the grade level standards. And I think that's important to emphasize with you, because that was a concept that we had many phone calls about as we delve into more mature concepts. It's hard for us to find a book that relates to their reading level without acknowledging the fact that when I go to their reading level, I'm pushing them really into a higher level thought process. And so they've talked about Tiananmen Square, they've talked about the things that have happened in Beirut and different things that are on a different level because they're able to handle those concepts. So it's my pleasure right now to recognize Mrs. Quintana, who is a teacher at Chevy Chase, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about the teaching experience within the classroom.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here. I'm Julie Quintana, and this is my 7th year of teaching children at Chevy Chase Elementary in the Center program. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the academic environment and what a classroom looks like. And when you walk in, it looks very similar to a 3rd grade classroom or any classroom. We have Chromebooks, access to technology, Promethean boards, and other instructional resources. As Mrs. Casper mentioned, we use William and Mary junior grade books, so there are textbooks that we do have that we use for reading. But what makes the experience very different is how our learning is structured. It's accelerated. We move at a much faster pace than in a regular classroom because students are coming in at an above grade reading level. We expect them to be able to comprehend reading materials independently. We do small groups, so our children are still broken for small group reading instruction, math instruction on here, but children are doing more independent accessing of text. It is much more reading and writing intensive. As has been mentioned twice, we follow the same MCPS math curriculums. The curriculum changes come in reading and writing, and they are integrated into the regular 4th grade science and social studies curriculum, but it's the reading and writing component that really sets it apart, and they are much more intensive. The program is also much more communicative and a lot more collaborative. Students will be working on projects together. We do a lot more talking about it, and it's a lot less teacher-centered and more student-directed. We use mentor texts as examples for students to read as examples and then model writing after. And all of the centers are different. We have regional centers, and at Chevy Chase, we pull from 17 different elementary schools. So the kids' experiences are very different and come in. We have flexible seating in my classroom. Our children are working very hard, so there's a variety of yoga balls to sit on or core seats or stools. So we try to reach students all around to make sure that we understand we're just dealing with 4th graders and they need movement during our day. That is not the same in every program. I'm just speaking specifically what you would see if you were to come to see Chevy Chase. If you talk about our instructional approaches, we teach very thematically. Our units of study are designed around different thematic concepts like culture or change or journeys. And the reading and writing components are very, very intertwined, and they are usually very correlated or integrated with either science or social studies. They engage in reading a variety of texts. We read books, we read online articles, we read interviews, we listen to podcasts, we create podcasts, we read novels, we read poetry. We are reading a large variety of both fiction and nonfiction text every quarter. Texts are above fourth grade reading level, and as Mrs. Casper mentioned, sometimes some of the topics are a little bit more mature. We talk about using animals in scientific and medical testing. We talk about immigration experiences, both positive and negative, from history and from today. So students do a lot of this reading, and then they reflect and engage through conversation, through group writing experiences, group projects, and individual projects. We approach reading beyond just comprehension, and we move to have kids notice deeper or opportunities for deeper thinking so that they can analyze texts as readers and writers. In the area of writing, students complete a very wide variety in their 2 years of different writing products. They write poems, they write feature articles, they write science fiction genre narratives, they write journals and diaries. And it's very interdisciplinary connections with science and social studies in those topics. Let's see. An example of one of the things that we're working on and just finished in the second quarter is in reading, students are learning about the science fiction genre. So we studied that, and then the kids tied that in with science curriculum and had to learn to do independent research on a scientific topic that excited them. Based on that scientific research, they studied content-specific vocabulary, and then they worked on writing a science fiction future world narrative that described what they imagined the future world might possibly look like based on the science research they did. This was scored for narrative writing, developing voice based on the 6 traits of writing. It was scored for use of language, meaning grammar, punctuation, punctuating dialogue, and how they went through the process of researching, producing, editing, taking feedback as a means of growth, and then producing a final product. So it ended up with both a narrative story and a visual image, a storyboarded narrative of what they thought the future might look like. Students do get whole group and small group instruction. Just because they are great readers, we understand that they still have reading needs, so students are still pulled for targeted small group instruction, and those groups are very fluid. Sometimes one group will need work on summarizing, so those students are pulled back based on that, and other times it's based on the book they're reading. So students still do get small group instruction. In our program, we still start every day with a read aloud because good reading should be modeled for fluency and creativity and ideas. Each of the programs does what's called a gemstone project, where we start working, and they vary across the different center programs. At Chevy Chase, our students for the last couple years have been doing TED Talks. And starting in third quarter, they'll investigate ideas they're very excited about. We will spend time narrowing it down to a topic they feel passionate about. They'll do a lot of research based on this topic, and then they will spend time writing, creating, editing, and then finally delivering a TED-style talk to a large audience at the end of the year. So this is a multi-quarter, multi-tasked project, and it's really exciting to see what the kids do. Coming to the center is a huge decision. It's a really good decision. The centers are fantastic, and some of the schools do things differently. Some schools have single classrooms where one teacher will teach all of the subjects. Other schools are departmentalized, where one teacher will teach reading and social studies, and one teacher will teach math and science, is usually how they're departmentalized through here. Again, they follow 4 MCPS math curriculum, so based on recommendations from your child's current school and scores, the 3rd grade team will make a recommendation whether your child progresses into Math 4 or Math 4-5 curriculum next year. That decision is made at your home school. We are not a math accelerated program, and our classrooms look a lot like regular classrooms. We have students with 504s and students with IEPs, and that does not mean your student can't come to the center program. Children with special needs, their needs are met. We have special educators that come in. We follow 504 plans, and children with those accommodations do very well in the program, given the amount of time and choice and help we can provide. Students, we have field trips like a regular classroom. Some of them are center-based, and some of them the entire 4th grade team goes on. St. Mary's is 4th grade curriculum. The entire 4th grade goes on that. In class, the way the center program approaches our learning to St. Mary's is a little bit different. It's a little bit more intense, and we make some more connections with it. Students at the new school, if you choose to come to one of the programs, you're still allowed to participate in before school and after school programs. Kids are allowed and encouraged to participate in all of the school activities your new school would have. Morning announcements, newspaper clubs, any teams or things like that. You become part of a new community. And for many children and many families, that's one of the biggest challenges of coming to the program is your kids are doing really well in the school they're in now, and they've got great friends, and they're doing this, and to uproot them and bring them to a new school is a very difficult transition sometimes. We as teachers and administrators understand that at the schools, and we do an awful lot of things very purposefully to make sure that children in our classrooms make connections. And for me as a teacher all these years, very often I've had kids come in and parents come in and say, you know, my kid really never fit in where they were. They were always in a desk reading a book, and they didn't want to play at recess. And then they came to the center and they found their tribe, because they found other kids that wanted to talk about nuclear physics and wanted to play chess or wanted to talk about these things. And they wanted to talk about mythology and which god was greater than another. And so for some kids, this is really the first time that they found like-minded peers whose minds work the way they do, who move as quickly. And we as teachers and administrators in the programs do things to make sure that kids are making connections, not only within the program, but within the larger school community that you move to. Chevy Chase, we have lunch and recess integrated in with the entire school. So kids are making friends in the program and outside of the program. They're participating in the play. They're coming to before and after school programs and clubs. So we're very mindful of that and do our best to help your children transition and make the change. There's one more. That was it. Okay. Some characteristics of students that do really well in the program. Kids that have a growth mindset. If you're here and you're interested in the program, your kid is probably pretty bright and does very well in school, gets work done very quickly. In the center program, we ask children to revise. We expect best work, so your child should be able to take feedback as a means of improvement and growth, not as a personal defeat. Kids should learn that quick answers aren't always the best answers. We very often ask children to go back and add more detail, and how do you know that, and how can you explain that, and support your thinking with more detail. So we encourage the children and hold the bar pretty high for them to explain their thinking and do their work. So hope this Good. And now this is Betty Shevitz from the CAPS program to explain the rest of the process for you.
Good evening. Thank you so much for coming here. You're hearing a lot of information about opportunities for acceleration and enrichment, both in the local programs and in the center programs, and you have a lot to think about and to take in. I am with Division of Consortia Choice and Application Program Services, DC CAPS, and I wanted just to take a few moments to go over the admissions process, which isn't as exciting to hear about, but how we communicate with you and the procedures from this point forward. You should have received information about the centers by mail earlier this month. If you have had a student, an older student in your family, you may have remembered that we used to have an application process. We no longer require parents to complete an application as it was in the past. Now, every grade 3 student's performance data is centrally reviewed to identify students who may demonstrate potential for additional acceleration and enrichment. This process has surfaced an increased number of students who were demonstrating the potential, whose families may not have been aware of the opportunity of the centers in the past. In early February, all grade 3 students will be centrally reviewed for potential eligibility in the center program. You will be notified by mail if your child will be assessed and also the date of testing. If your child is not recommended for testing, you may still request them to be tested. All you need to do is fill out the form on the bottom of the letter saying, yes, I want my child tested, and send it back to the classroom teacher. As the same, if you do not wish your child to be included in the testing, you may decline in the same way. Eligible students will be given an online above grade level assessment at their current school on a day sometime between February 19th and the 28th. You will be notified both by DC CAPS as well as your school for the specific date that they will be tested. Information for homeschool and private school students is available online at our website. In addition, we have copies of the registration form in the back at the table where you came in, and you're welcome to pick one up as you leave. Just a quick word about the testing. If your child wakes up in the morning and is not feeling well, please do not send a sick child to school for the test. There is no way that they can possibly perform at their best if they're not feeling well. Your school will provide a make-up test date for them. If you're a private or homeschool parent, we will also provide make-up testing if you're unable to make the test date. The test is a reasoning ability test, how your child thinks and processes information. It's not an achievement test. There really is no way to prepare. We recommend a good night's sleep and a good breakfast. There are a limited number of seats in each program. Students who demonstrate an academic need beyond that which can be easily met at the local school will be considered for a seat in the program. A central committee meets to review the students, examining a variety of data in order to determine those students who need the program the most. They will be looking at their academic performance, standardized testing, their local peer group, and the potential for success with accelerated and enriched instruction. The decision letters will be mailed out in April. Transportation is provided to the centers, but it's from local central locations, central stops. They're usually MCPS schools. Stops may be several miles from your home. As a parent, you are responsible for arranging transportation to and from the central location. Bus trips can vary in length, but may be up to an hour. You should consider this when making your decision as far as the impact that it would have on your family and schedule. Here's the next. We've tried to anticipate some of the frequently asked questions, and I'm just going to go over those. Be thinking, if I don't cover one of them, of questions that you may have, and we will have an opportunity at the end to answer some of those. We're always asked, what are the data points being looked at for selection? We use the measures of academic progress, which is, you may know as the MAP-M and the MAP-R testing. They look at the instructional reading level, student services, the student daily performance data, and also the report card, and the outside assessment, the cognitive abilities test. So what is the COGAT? The COGAT measures reasoning ability in 3 areas: verbal, quantitative, and nonverbal. We're always asked, how can I prepare my child for this test? As I mentioned, it's not an achievement test. It is something that you can't study or practice. The testing does include sample questions for each of the subtests, and the tester goes over these with the students to ensure that they understand what they're being asked to do. Again, the best thing is for them to be well rested and a good breakfast. Please encourage your child to do his or her best. What happens if you move? Since the center assignments are based on your current home address, it is important for you to let us know, DC CAPS, myself, as soon as possible to ensure that your child will be considered for the correct center. If the selection has already taken place and your child is invited to attend, we will attempt to accommodate your needs, but this may not always be possible. Your child will always have a seat at the center for which they were selected, but you would need to provide the transportation. So if you're thinking of moving, or if you've moved at the beginning of the semester and you don't have your current address in the school system database, please make sure to give that to your school, and also let us know if and when you're going to be moving. What is the average class size? We go by the average class size across the county, which is about 29 students in a class. Is it possible to take my local bus to school and then catch the bus to the center? That sounds like a really good idea, except the center buses tend to go through your school much earlier than your home neighborhood school bus would get your child to the school. So they would inevitably be missing that center bus. So it is important that you take them to the central location. You have a choice of any of the locations on the route that is most convenient for you. We're going to now take a few minutes to open up for questions that you may have that were not covered in this evening's presentation. Be mindful that if you have a question that is good for the general group, that's great. If you have a question that's more personal in nature and very specific to you, please give me a call or email me, and I'll be happy to help you with that question. So, Mrs. Franklin, oh, there you are. She's going to have the mic and go up and down the aisles and get your questions. If I can have Mrs. Williams